Hare One is how Krishna Balaram went to residence in Vrindavan and Kurukshetra after a long time. Another one is
Krishna Feather. Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Balaram Mahamotsa ki, Shri Konita Mahaprasad ki. Somebody reverse it. Do it backwards. So today we're celebrating the appearance of Lord Balarama. Another name for Balaram is Dauji. Can anyone tell me what Dauji means?
Big brother.
Big brother. That's one. That's right, because he's Krishna's big brother. Welcome to this evening's celebration, glorifying Lord Balaram. Thanks everyone for coming to the temple who's able to come, and thanks everyone for coming online. An interesting story to begin with. It's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. His name is Guru Kripa Maharaj. And one time he was bringing some Krishna Balaram deities from India to the west, and he got stopped at the customs, so they asked him to open up the case, and then he says, you know, what's this? And Guru Kripa Maharaj was Krishna, but then he says, that's God. And the Guru Kripa Maharaj was the kind of person that you don't argue with. Because of his background, you got an idea that he was not somebody to disagree with very easily. And then he opened the other casket and he says, and who's this? And he says, that's God's older brother. So of course the customs official was a bit perplexed and he said, okay, on you go. So first of all, he'd seen what he would consider would be a statue, and was told it was God, and that's God's older brother. So such is a concept that they cannot imagine, because the general concept of God is that he's the supreme and nobody's greater than. So how can he have an older brother and a mum and a dad? But actually, that's only our tiny, minute perception of what we try to impose upon God. It's not that we decide who God is and he has to obey our command. Bhakti Vaibhava Maharaj was mentioning that the first thing you learn in Krishna consciousness is that Krishna can do anything. He can do whatever he likes and nobody can challenge it, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not answering to anybody. And even Lord Balaram, he's like that too. Because he's God's older brother, then he doesn't answer to his younger brother. Although as the older brother, he takes on a protective mode. And another description of the name Dowji, Dow means one who bestows benediction. So just like an older brother would be kind to the younger brother and protect him and look after him like that. So I just wanted to read a little from this book here, which is Festivals with Srila Prabhupada. Read a little this morning, and as well as being the older brother of Krishna, and we can read the pastimes in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially we can see in the Krishna book many wonderful pastimes, and we'll read a couple of these later on. So today's program is, of course, thanks to Vrinda for lovely kirtan, and I'll be speaking about Lord Balaram for a few minutes in the context of that he's Adi Guru, the original spiritual master. And we'll sing a little bhajan, which is to invoke the mercy of Lord Balaram. Srila Prabhupada says that Lord Balaram, he gives spiritual strength. So if we pray to Lord Balaram for his mercy to have spiritual strength, so that we can avoid Maya, and we can become free from our conditioning, and we can regain our original identity, then Lord Balaram will give us the strength to do that. He will reveal who we really are, because he's the one who can give us entrance into the spiritual world. So we'll sing a bhajan, and then Tokshya Prabhu will give a talk on spiritual strength coming from Balaram. And then we'll have Gaura Arti from 6:30 to 7, and then there'll be some Balaram stories, and then there'll be prasadam served. So I hope you're all cooking a nice feast for Balaram at home. At least make some Varuni beverage and offer it to Lord Balaram. He's very fond of that. And I'll announce also that this coming Sunday, the temple will be open for visitors from outside. We've been locked down for over 4 months, and online there will be some directions as to how to make this visit. It won't be like your normal visit to the temple, but there'll be some restrictions imposed upon that. So that will be advertised on the temple Facebook page, and by email. That will be sent out to everybody who's on the mailing list. So if anyone who's not on the mailing list would like some information about that, they can contact us at Facebook page. If you don't have that, then there's a phone number. Okay, so just there's a short talk here by Srila Prabhupada on the appearance of Lord Nityananda. So on our altar here we have Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And just in case anyone's confused about who they are, if you're from Bengal, then you're probably very familiar with who is Lord Chaitanya and who is Lord Nityananda. But if you're not, then you might want to know, you might be pleased to know that Vrajendra Nandana Ye Sachisuta Hailo Se Balarama Hailo Nitai. So this is Vrajendra Nandana Ye Sachisuta Hailo Se. So Vrajendra Nandana means Krishna. And he became Sachisuta, as in the son of Mother Sachi, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gauranga. And Balaram Hailo Nitai. Balaram became Nitai. So in previous yuga, previous age, Dwapara Yuga, then Krishna and Balaram appeared and they displayed many wonderful pastimes and they exhibited Printana Sadhanam Vinashaya Chadushritam, annihilating the miscreants, liberating the devotees. And in Kali Yuga also they appeared, and this Pavitranaya Sadhanam Vinashaya Chadushritam, the Vinashaya, the vanquishing of the demons, is actually vanquishing their demonic mentality. So in Kali Yuga, everybody struggles with their mind. We have our good days or bad days, we have our good side and our bad side. Sometimes you see it depicted, there's a little devil on one side of the shoulder, and there's a little guardian angel on the other side with a halo. And sometimes as kids we used to see that in comics, and the person would be thinking, okay, who will I listen to, which one should I listen to? So this is like our mind. Our mind is sometimes saying, yes, do this, this is nice, this is good, this is right. And then the other aspect of the mind is saying, oh, don't bother with that, just be a rascal, it's good fun. So this Maha Mantra has descended in Kali Yuga to help liberate our mind, so that we're not confused with this dilemma of what is right and what is wrong. Vritti-chan and Vritti-chan, Krishna mentions that in Kali Yuga everyone is confused about what is to be done and what is not to be done. But Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are none other than Krishna Balaram, they descended to say, never mind who's qualified, who's unqualified, what's right or what's wrong, just chant the holy names, just chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and everything will be auspicious. So if we do that, then everything will become auspicious. So Srila Prabhupada mentions here that Balaram means spiritual strength. So Bala means strength and Rama means pleasure, a reservoir of pleasure. So this type of strength which is being mentioned here is not physical strength, but actually spiritual strength. And that spiritual strength is that we take shelter in Lord Balaram, we take shelter in the Guru Parampara. So taking shelter in Lord Balaram doesn't mean to say we just go directly and we don't need anyone else. We just put a picture of Balaram on our altar and that's all we need. Well, taking shelter of Balaram means taking shelter of the disciplic succession of spiritual masters who are coming down representing Lord Balaram. And this is how we get our spiritual strength. Therefore, Lord Balaram is known as Adi Guru, the original spiritual master. So just in case anyone is a little confused as to who is Lord Balaram or who is Lord Nityananda, then I thought we could speak a little bit about the glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. So Prabhupada says, without the mercy of Balaram, you cannot understand your spiritual identity. Therefore, we must take shelter of Balaram. And there's a song by Narottam Das Thakur, Nitai Pada Kamala, Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala. If we take shelter of Lord Nityananda, then we get peace, Koti Chandra Shushitala. We get the Shushitala, the shade, Jechayai, Jagata Jurai. Lord Nityananda is able to give Jurai to the whole Jagat. He's able to give shelter and peace and shade. Just like if you're in the sun and you're feeling troubled by it, and then you come across some nice shade, then you feel some relief. So when we take shelter of the shade of Lord Balaram's lotus feet, then we experience some relief from the pangs of material existence. So Srila Prabhupada said that this suffering and enjoying in the material world, actually it's all suffering. When we're enjoying, simply all we're doing is agitating the mind, which is going to keep us further bound to the material world. So as long as we have a material body, then there is suffering or potential for future suffering. So what Lord Balaram is offering is the shade from this incessant flow of desires which are coming into the mind, which are troubling us and which are impelling us to act, sometimes against our will. And even if it's not against our will, it's against our better judgment. So from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 5, the glories of Lord Nityananda are explained. So here I'll just read through this. This chapter is chiefly devoted to describing the essential nature and glories of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Lord Shri Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead and his first expansion in a form for pastimes of Sri Balaram. Beyond the limitation of this material world is the spiritual sky, Paravyoma, which has many spiritual planets, the supreme of which is called Krishna Loka. Krishna Loka, the abode of Krishna, has three divisions which are known as Dwarka, Mathura and Gokula. In that abode, the personality of Godhead expands himself into four planetary portions: Krishna, Balaram, Pradyumna, the transcendental Cupid, and Aniruddha. They are known as the original quadruple forms. In Krishna Loka is a transcendental place known as Svetagri or Vrindavan. Below Krishna Loka in the spiritual sky are Vaikuntha planets. On each Vaikuntha planet, the four-handed Narayan expanded from the first quadruple manifestation is present. The personality of Godhead known as Sri Balaram in Krishna Loka is the original Sankirtan, attracting deity. And from this Sankirtan expands another Sankirtan called Mahasankirtan, who resides in one of the Vaikuntha planets. By his internal potency, Mahasankirtan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky, where all the living beings are eternally liberated souls. The influence of the material energy is conspicuous there by its absence. On those planets, the second quadruple manifestation is present. Outside of the Vaikuntha planets is the impersonal manifestation of Sri Krishna, which is known as the Brahma Loka. On the other side of Brahma Loka is the spiritual Karana Samudra or causal ocean. Material energy exists on the other side of causal ocean without touching it. In the causal ocean is Mahavishnu, the original Purusha expansion from Sankirtan. This Mahavishnu places his glance over the material energy, and by reflection of his transcendental body, he amalgamates himself within the material elements. As the source of the material elements, the material energy is known as Pradhan, and as the source of the manifestations of the material energy, it is known as Maya. But material energy is inert in that she has no independent power to do anything. She is empowered to make the cosmic manifestation by the glance of Mahavishnu. Therefore, the material energy is not the original cause of the material manifestation. Rather, the transcendental glance of Mahavishnu over material nature produces that cosmic manifestation. Mahavishnu again enters every universe as the reservoir of all living entities. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu expand Kirodakashaya Vishnu, the super soul of every living entity. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu also has his own Vaikuntha planet in every universe where he lives as the super soul or supreme controller of the universe. What's the name of that planet? Yeah. It's also called Svetadvip. It's interesting. That planet's called Svetadvip, and also Vrindavan is known as Svetadvip. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu reclines in the midst of the watery portion of the universe and generates the first living creature of the universe, Brahma. The imaginary universal form is a partial manifestation of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So can anyone tell me what Garbo means? What's one? One, exactly, yeah. So this is Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is lying within on the causal ocean, or sorry, the waters of the Garbo ocean, and he's just lying there just as a child would be lying within the womb of his mother. But he's not under any influence, rather by his influence he simply glances at the material world is manifested. The Vaikuntha planet in every universe is an ocean of milk, and within that ocean is an island called Svetadvip, where Lord Krishna lives. Therefore this chapter describes two Svetadvips, one in the abode of Krishna and the other in the ocean of milk in every universe. The Svetadvip in the abode of Krishna is identical with Vrindavan Dham, which is the place where Krishna himself appears himself to display his loving pastimes. In the Svetadvip within every universe is a Shesha form of Godhead who serves Vishnu by assuming the form of his umbrella, slippers, couch, pillows, garments, residence, secret thread, throne, and so on. Lord Balaram in Krishna Loka is Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu is the original Sankarshan and Mahasankarshan, and his expansions as the Purushas in the universes are plenary expansions of Nityananda Prabhu. So just to give you an idea, Lord Nityananda is not some obscure person who just emerged out of Bengal and been worshipped sentimentally by Bengalis. No, this is the Shastric that Lord Nityananda is none other than Balaram, who is the first expansion of Krishna, whom all other expansions are coming from. And the magnitude of that is being explained here in terms of the different manifestations, both spiritual and material. In this chapter, the author has described the history of his leaving home for personal pilgrimage to Vrindavan. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's brother, not recognizing the glories of Lord Nityananda, also took sides with the priest. Therefore Ramdas became sorry, broke his flute and went away. This was a great disaster. Okay, so yeah, in this chapter, then Lord Nityananda, he revealed himself to Krishnadas Kaviraj in a dream as Balaram. In the book you can see there's a nice painting of that, where Krishnadas Kaviraj is completely astounded to see that Lord Nityananda is Balaram. So we don't have time to go through all of this, because to get a full understanding, that is a summary of the situation. The glories of Lord Balaram. And to get a glimpse of this, then we'd need to read about 140 verses, which we don't have time for. So I'll select a couple of verses. So verse 1, let me offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. Now in 5 verses I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountain head of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. They are both one and the same identity. They differ only in form. He is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. So, Srila Prabhupada explains there's no difference between them, and that he's the foremost assistant of Krishna in his transcendental activities. And this is a nice verse text. Say Krishna Navadvipi Sri Chaitanya Chandra, say Balarama Sangye Sri Nityananda. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankirtan, Seshanag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karma ocean, Garba ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions, and the portions of his plenary portions. Sri Balaram Goswami Mula Sankirshana Pancharupadari Karina Krishnera Sevana. Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshan. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the forms of Lord Shesha he serves Krishna in various ways. So that was described there, how he serves him. In all the forms he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balaram is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundar. So Lord Balaram, by his mercy, he's engaging everybody in Krishna's service. And because he knows how to perfectly serve Krishna, then through the medium of the Guru Parampara, then we can learn from the spiritual masters how to serve Krishna. So this is what the Krishna consciousness movement is all about. It's about learning how to serve Krishna even while within this material world. And this is known as Jivan Mukta. That even within this body, within this lifetime, we can be liberated. We don't have to wait until the end of this life to discover, did I do the right thing? Did I make the right choice? Should I have followed another path? We don't have, it's not guesswork, it's not taking anything by chance, but actually it's Dharma Projita Kaitava, Dharma Projita, that Krishna is directly enunciating Dharma, and it is directly experienced by engaging in devotional service. We can directly experience the taste of the Bhakti Rasa, the taste of the devotional service. So as we're discussing this morning, then when we read and we hear from the authorities, then we imbibe the mood and the theory, but then we have to put it into some practical application, and when we put it in practice, then we realise. And the realisation is a very practical thing. Simply, how can we utilise everything in Krishna's service? If we can understand 3 things, Bhoktaram, Jagatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam, Sarvabhutanam, Yatmam Shantam Richati, that we can become peaceful and satisfied if we understand that Krishna is actually the supreme enjoyer. And when we serve him, then we enjoy automatically and without any material reaction. Not only that, but we become free from all past reactions. And we also recognize Krishna as Amsavasya Prabhavo, the master of all spiritual and material worlds. He's the supreme proprietor, and he's the supreme benefactor. Only he can actually give benefit to anyone. Sometimes we like to think that we're benefiting people. We have some opulence at our discretion and we give it out and we think, yes, I'm charitable or I'm a kind person or whatever. Now, we can be a kind person, that's fine, but we have to understand that actually nothing is ours. Everything belongs to Krishna. And if everybody adopts that understanding, then there's no argument. The only argument is how to serve Krishna best. Not that this is mine and that's yours, and let's draw a line down here. Like in the 60s, I can't remember the name of the group. If Ash was here, he'd be able to tell me, but there was a group who wrote this song, My Pink Half of the Drain Pipe. So sometimes people are so nitty-gritty about possessiveness that even the drain pipe, which is, in a terraced house, sometimes they share a drain pipe. So someone's got like a certain half they want it one colour, somebody wants it another half another colour. They're so territorial. that they can't even agree on what colour to paint the communal drain pipe. So, and this mentality begins from the very beginning of childhood. We don't need to be trained in it. Children know already, because from previous lives we're carrying this I, me and mine. This is the very basis of material existence. But Lord Balaram, he's teaching us that no, it's not I, me and mine, it's Krishna's. No, it's not about me. It's all about serving Krishna. Nothing is mine, it all belongs to Krishna. Let's use it in his service for his pleasure. And so in this way we can escape the material entanglement, and at the same time live within the material world without any fear of becoming entangled in it. So just as Krishna, when he descends, and Lord Balaram also, when he descends to the material world, so sometimes Lord Balaram is known as Avadut. He's quite, what do you say, unconventional, and so we shouldn't imitate these unconventional behaviours of Lord Balaram, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just it's described that just as a spider spins a web, and the spider can travel on that web without getting entangled, and the Lord, when he descends, he's not entangled in the material world. He's not governed by any material law. And so similarly, his devotees, when they're fully connected, then they're also not bound by the laws of material nature. So it's explained that one who takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then crossing over the ocean of material miseries, or the ocean of the birth and death, samsara, then it's no more difficult than stepping over the water contained within the hoofprint of a calf. So if you're out in the fields and you see a little calf's footprint with a little puddle of water, you don't have to think, okay, how are we going to get across this? Let's get a ladder, or let's get a boat. You just step over it without even thinking, you don't even notice it. And even if you step in it, it's not going to do any problem for you. So one who takes shelter in Lord Balaram, which means one who takes shelter in the spiritual master, then they become abhaya, they become fearless. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmayama prashita. So they become free from attachment, fear and anger, and simply we take shelter in Lord Balaram and pray to him for spiritual strength. So even taking shelter, we can't even do that in our own strength. We have to pray to Lord Balaram, please give us the strength that may become attracted to devotional service. Our second nature, or material nature, is that automatically we're attracted to material pleasure. Automatically we're attracted to certain things in the material world, certain things that we behold as being beautiful, etc. But we forget that these are all temporary manifestations. And Lord Balarama is Adiguru. He reminds us that this material world, don't place importance on it. It's fleeting, and everything which is in this world is fleeting. Don't try to make a permanent place of residence in this material world. You cannot stay, even if you want to, you can't stay. You can stay birth after birth if you like, but when we take shelter in Lord Balaram, then no more birth, no more death, no more age, and no more disease. So this is what Srila Prabhupada gave us, and Srila Prabhupada came representing Lord Balaram, and he says that nobody can spread Krishna consciousness unless they're empowered by Lord Balaram. So if we want to spread Krishna consciousness, if we want to share that the wonderful gift of Krishna consciousness to others, then we take shelter in Lord Balaram so that he may empower us to spread this Krishna consciousness. Okay. We'll just stop there and we'll chant some bhajan, bhajan Guranga, Guranga Namari. So because Lord Nityananda is not different from Lord Balaram, and it's not even that he's not different, he's the same, although that means the same thing, it's not that there's any distinction. Balaram, Nitai, same person. Then if we want to please Lord Nityananda, to get his mercy, if we want to please Lord Balaram, then he says, Bhaja Guranga, Kaha Guranga, Laha Guranga Namari, Jejana Guranga Bhaji, Siya Amara Pranari. Worship Guranga, chant Guranga, and take the name of Guranga, give that name to others. And one who does so becomes the life and soul. He's Lord Nityananda is so pleased if we do that, so that's all we have to do, so let's do that now. Thank you. Shri Krishna Balarama ki, Shri Balarama Mahotsav ki, Shri Nityananda Rama ki. Vacha Goranga, Daha Goranga, Daha Goranga, Vacha Goranga, Vacha Goranga, Daha Goranga, Daha Goranga,
Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. So a really nice thing I wanted to share with the devotees was a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to Tamal Krishna Goswami in 73 on the 8th of August, and he said, observe many festivals that will keep both public and devotees alive. Temple means festivals, and festival means chanting and distribution of prasada. So that's nice. So one of the aspects that's interesting about Balaram and his appearance is the significance is the demons that Balaram killed. So he killed Denikasura, which means removing the burden of ignorance or the concept of I and mine. And he also killed Palambasura, and the significance of that is that it's removing disguise, hypocrisy, egoism, lust, and enemies disguised as your best friend. Anyone got any enemies disguised as their best friends? Hope not. Maybe don't know. Maybe just think he's your best friend.
Maybe just a good disguise.
You'll find out if you have a sharp pain in your back and you're not watching him. You know he wasn't your best friend after all. And also your best friend could be, we have a stage in devotional service which is an art and a pretty. And anarta is getting rid of unwanted things. But sometimes our anartas, we think they're our best friends. We think, no, I'm going to hold on to this one. This is a really nice anarta. Well, we don't even think it's an anarta, actually. I've been watering a weed for about 3 weeks. I was really proud of it, and I just found out about 2 days ago there's an apple in the phone. I just found out that I've been watering a weed for 3 weeks. It's a very good specimen, but it's a weed. So anartas are unwanted, but if you don't know what a weed looks like, you may think you're cultivating something really nice, you see. So it could seem like it's your best friend, but actually it's an enemy. And then the killing of Romaharsha. And what's interesting about Romaharsha is it's removing bad character and pride. And Balaram used the blade of grass because the blade of grass is the lowest thing, it's the most humble thing you can use. So he used the blade of grass to kill Romaharsha, to take away his pride. That's interesting, isn't it? So these anartas have to be destroyed. So there's a whole series of demons that Krishna kills. Now the demons that Krishna kills, what's significant about that is they are the anartas. They represent anartas which are destroyed by the process of sadhana bhakti. But sadhana bhakti is, sometimes we can think, well, if I just chant and peel the potatoes, everything else will happen automatically. So that's not actually quite the fact. So this is mentioned in Sri Ramanuja's book, Sudha Bhakti Chintamani. He talks about automatic advancement. And he says that automatic advancement is a natural part of, rather than an alternative to educated efforts to attain perfection. So our efforts have to be with knowledge. We have to have sufficient knowledge. And then if we're doing everything with proper knowledge and implementation of the knowledge, not just that we know the sloka, but then when something happens, we don't actually, like we could know matrasvasis to konteya, sitoshna, sukadukada, and we know the non-parent periods of happiness and distress. I like the winter and summer seasons. So we know it off by heart, but then when the weather's not so good, we may not be so keen to do our devotional service. We have to learn to tolerate it without being disturbed. So automatic advancement is there if the knowledge is implemented. So we may know the knowledge theoretically, but are we applying it? You see? If we're applying it, then Krishna will take care of all those demons. But the demons that he won't take care of, they're only destroyed by taking shelter of the spiritual strength of Balaram in the form of the Guru. So we want that Shakti, we want the Bala, the spiritual strength, to be able to get free from these anartas that Balaram kills. But we'll only have those anartas removed if we take shelter from the spiritual master, and then by his mercy we get the Shakti from Balaram, and then we give up the strength to give up those anartas. On that same subject, actually, which is quite interesting, is there's two types of pastimes that take place as well. There's occasional pastimes of Krishna, and there's eternal pastimes. So, and also the occasional pastimes of Balaram as well. So occasional pastimes such as taking birth, killing demons, appearing in different avatars, they clear impediments from the heart by hearing them. And the eternal pastimes, such as Krishna's tending the cows, playing with his friends, dancing with the gopis, delighting his parents, they enable devotees to taste the mellow of pure devotion. But until devotees reach the stage of ecstasy, they should especially hear and contemplate the significance of Krishna's occasional pastimes. So until we're at the stage of ruchi, going past nishta, we should be more concerned with meditating on Krishna's and Balaram's pastimes, of taking care of the demons, the occasional pastimes, and taking birth. So today it's a very nice day. We're celebrating the appearance of Krishna. And I was just trying to clarify, this is from Jiva Goswami. Does anyone know the exact age of Krishna? I know he's 75 trillion zillion years old, but in terms of his Kaishya age, he doesn't go past the Kaishya age. Does anyone know exactly what Krishna's age is? Okay, here we go. So, this is from the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharya Siddha Krishna Das Tatapad. He says, Bhagavan Sri Krishna's eternal age is 15 years, 9 months, and 7.5 days. So that's very accurate. So, and Balaram is 10 days older. So, although Balaram, first of all, took his birth in the womb of Devaki, and then it seemed like she had a miscarriage, then he was transferred into the womb of Rohini, then he waited for a long time, and then he appeared just 10 days before Krishna appeared. So that's why he's 10 days older. Interesting, eh? So that means Balaram is 15 years, 9 months, and 17.5 days old. Nice, eh? So, doesn't go past that age. So the occasional pastimes are the ones that we should be especially interested in. We're engaged in the process of anat and nirviti in the initial stages of devotional service. And we need all the help that we can get to get free from these anatas, need to identify them. And especially days like today, we can ask for Balaram's mercy, for his Shakti, so that we can get the strength. And the strength is especially reflected in our enthusiasm. Srila Prabhupada said, I just read this recently, he said, our enthusiasm is our success. So if you can be enthusiastic, then that's whatever else happens, the results are up to Krishna, but we can at least manage our affairs in terms of how we negotiate our way through the ups and downs of life by keeping a smile on our face and keeping inspired and enthusiastic. So this strength, the spiritual strength from Balaram, this ability, it does actually take a strength of character to be happy amidst adverse conditions actually. Only the strong can stay happy in difficult situations. And sometimes life toughens us up. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying, if you want to get anywhere in devotional service, you have to learn to push and shove. He says, because you don't get anywhere in this world unless you push and shove, because we're getting pushed and shoved all the time. So we have to learn to push and shove back. So the modes tend to push and shove us into being negative or lethargic or not so enthusiastic. So we push back by being enthusiastic and endeavouring with determination. And interesting, this is a saying from Chanakya Pandit: no poverty for the industrious and no defeat for the determined. So a person could fail many times, but if he keeps getting up, then he will eventually be successful. Defeat is only for those that give up. If you continue trying, then sooner or later. And I just heard from a really nice devotee, Amarendra, Indian devotee, and he was saying that Krishna and Balaram are against the law of gravity. Because with the law of gravity, if you fall off a hill, then you go falling down, and then you hit the ground and break something. But with Krishna and Balaram, when you fall, they pick you up and push you back up. So they don't they do the opposite of the law of gravity. Instead of taking you down, they obviously push you back up. So no poverty for the industrious and no defeat for the determined. So we have no control over the result, but we do have control over the endeavour. And it's the endeavour actually which is the real success. So if I was determined, then failure is the pillar of success. We just have to continually keep trying. So just one on the subject of spiritual strength, and related also to your enthusiasm and your determination is also your spiritual strength. You could say that's how you determine how much you've been given the mercy of Lord Balarama. And another interesting aspect to this determination and this Shakti that we get from Balaram is also our knowledge And that's referred to in Sri Balarama's book, Sridhavati Chintamani. And he says there, an interesting thing, he says, Srila Prabhupada defines the Bhakti Lata Beej. We all know about the creeper that's growing in your heart, the Bhakti Lata Beej, that little plant in amongst the weeds, in my case anyway, which are much bigger. Are the instructions. So the Bhakti Lata Beej are the instructions, the methods, the rules, and the regulations by which one is perfectly trained in devotional service. If the devotees do not take the spiritual master's instructions they are given, if instead they succumb to the bias of personal motivation, they cannot properly water the seed. As a result, the creeper of devotion will not sprout. Srila Prabhupada says, one who has not properly heard from the spiritual master, or who does not follow the regulative principles, is not fit for chanting, kirtan. In short, improper hearing results in impotent chanting, the effect of which is a heart devoid of pure devotion. So, improper, one could think, well, I am hearing really well. I just had the earwax removed the other day from the National Health Service, and both my ears now are really, really clear, and I can hear every word the person's saying. But hearing really means the ability to put into practice. They say that's the first sprouting of the hearing process, is the ability to put into practice what you've heard. So when you're doing that, then you can say, now I'm hearing. Up until then, you're trying to hear, but it's going in one ear and maybe coming out the other. When it goes in the ear, stays in the heart, and then we practice it. Then the Bhakti Lata Beej can start to sprout, start to grow. And Thakur Bhaktivinoda says, as long as the jiva is not firmly established in the knowledge of Sambandha Tattva, he will be unable to disperse the mist and clouds of anarthas from his heart. In this state, the jiva cannot chant the pure name of Krishna, his chanting being polluted by unwanted things. So we want to get to this stage as quickly as possible of being free of all the unwanted things, so that we can chant the whole name purely, the Shuddha Nam. And that is the real mercy of Balaram, and also in the form of Lord Nityananda. I was just reading earlier as well, the difference between Lord Nityananda and Balaram is Balaram kills the demons, but Lord Nityananda, he saved Jagai Mother, he didn't kill them, he liberated them. So, especially Balaram in the form of Lord Nityananda is especially significant for us. In the age of Kali Yuga, we really need the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and then by his mercy, we gain the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and then we gain the mercy of Radha Krishna. And we get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and the mercy of the Guru. Okay, so I hope I haven't depressed everyone too much. It's very positive, the solution is there. And today is the day to beg for the strength and the mercy and the knowledge and the ability to implement. Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai. Hari Hari Bol. Back to the chopping board.
Please ask everyone to stand for our activity. Brenda, would you like to sing? So I'm just going to arty for the deities, and then we'll finish off the evening programme with finish off even quoting some pastimes of Lord Balaram. And we encourage everybody to read some more of these pastimes. If you're not familiar with Lord Balaram, then read about his pastimes, and very quickly he'll steal your heart. And if you are familiar with them, then become more familiar. God says that repetition is the mother of learning. So the more we hear about Balarama and hear from him, then the more we become purified. Shri Shri Koditaya Mahaprashansa ki Jai. Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Yes, you can do something. It's not an issue. I'm not sure.
Can't just be guessing. That's what
Lord Krishna asking some relation to this. I think there's two I want to choose from. There's a section from Sri Krishna Sankati, which is about Balaram, and then a message to devotees. Just been reading through that. And this is again the flatter, because you haven't had time to read through it much.
Is it going to be read from here or what's happening? This is so that it's going to take 15 minutes. One of them is really bad. The other one is take about 15 minutes. You can do that one, I suppose. My goodness.
So we can see together in this good.
Felix, can you read that one there? Felix is going to read something from
Sri Krishna Sankati.
Sri Krishna Sankati.
Krishna Sankati.
And it's the meeting of Krishna Balaram at Kurukshetra. So please give your full attention to this for the next 10-15 minutes.
As long as the Vrajavasis were separated from him, they would be absorbed in a trance of remembrance. In that meditation, they would taste an uninterrupted state of bliss, far excelling the sporadic happiness they could taste in his company. It was for the benefit of the Vrajavasis then that unhappy Krishna stayed at Dwaraka. Krishna's course of action, however, did not suit his older brother Baladev. Neither did Baladev approve of Krishna's line of reasoning. And so, after many unsuccessful attempts to change Krishna's mind, Baladev, empathetic to the suffering of Vrajavasis, decided that he would console them. He would visit Vrindavan alone. Seeing Balaram so determined, Krishna had half a mind to go. But when the Yadus got wind of Krishna's intent, they made every effort to restrain him. His elders feigned sickness, his wives pouted, and his children cried. The Dwarkavasis thought, The gopis are famous for their pure love, and Krishna's parents are extremely affectionate. Hari is controlled by love. If he returns to Vrindavan, then he will be unable to leave a second time. Under no condition can we let him go. At an auspicious time to begin a journey, Balaram approached Sri Krishna and took permission to depart. The thought of being separated from Hari pained Balaram as much as it did the Vrajavasis. But Balaram had made up his mind, and he prepared to mount his chariot. Krishna gave him a message for the gopis. This time, Krishna's message was verbal. It was lengthy, full of meaning, and directed to different groups of gopis. And unlike Uddhava, he had taken Krishna's first written message to Vraja. Balaram was as familiar with the ways of Vrindavan as Krishna. Balaram was certainly the suitable messenger. Still, Balaram's mood was different from his younger brothers. His relationship with Krishna's gopis, was as an elder, a guru. Balaram could not take Krishna's place. He would merely act as Krishna's emissary to the gopis. Balaram travelled through the Abhira and Saubhara provinces, across the lands of scanty water and arid desert to Brahmavata, and finally to Vrindavan. And as he did, he felt the ever-increasing weight of Krishna's message upon his mind. How would he represent Krishna's words to the distressed gopis? He had never undertaken such a difficult task. After a long journey, Balaram reached Vraja, and at last Nandagrama. The Vrajavasis greeted him like a drowning man welcomes a breath of air, and Balaram's dealing with his parents, elders, and friends were full of love and joy. After sitting upon the laps of Nanda and Yashoda, after being embraced by them and bathed with their tears, Balaram paid fitting respects to the elder cowherd men and greeted the younger gopas with playful affection. Balaram greeted the Vrajavasis with smiles, handshakes, and embraces. He dealt personally with each loved one in a way befitting their age and position. Then, after resting, he accepted a comfortable seat from his kinsman, and they eagerly sat down surrounding him. With voices faltering out of love, those cowherds, who had dedicated everything to Hari, asked about the health of their dear ones in Dwarka. Inevitably, the Vrajavasis' questions turned to topics of Krishna, and Balaram answered as if he had 1,000 mouths. While hearing Krishna's pastimes, the Vrajavasis did not move, blink, or even breathe. They did not want to miss one single word of Baladev's wonderful kirtan. Their hearts soared within Krishna's pastimes as their bodies sat motionless. They were like great eagles gliding through the vast expanse of sky without moving a feather. Finally, late at night, Balaram lovingly inquired about the cowherds' welfare and then begged them to allow him to rest. In the bliss of Baladev's return to the Vrajavasis' pain of separation from Krishna abated, and they laughed, rejoiced, and talked freely once again. Baladev had fulfilled his mission. He had breathed life into Vrindavan and its inhabitants. All that remained was to relay Krishna's message to the gopis and bring peace to their hearts, the heaviest task of all. After the Vrajavasis had returned to their homes, they eagerly conversed about what they had heard from Balaram. Meanwhile, Krishna's elder brother slipped away to meet the gopis in a secluded place. Abandoned to their longing for Shyamasundara, the gopis were giddy with ecstatic love. On the brink of madness, they smiled and laughed, then shed tears of sorrow, all without apparent cause. Their emotions conflicted with one another as a raging river's turbulent currents sometimes eddy upstream. Even Balaram, the great ocean of divine mellows, was submerged in the ecstasy of the gopis. In that state, he honoured their exclusive love for his brother, and the gopis in turn honoured him as the elder brother of their beloved. Regarding Krishna's message, the gopis faced a dilemma. Should they hear it or ignore it? After all, whatever Krishna said would only be words that could neither replace him nor pacify their hearts. He may have sent conciliatory notes, ornate with declarations of love. But if he truly loved them, then he himself would have returned. Without hesitating, the gopis reprimanded Krishna with the charges of love. He was an infidel, an ingrate, a dishonest person. They cited many examples to support their assertions, but as they did so, they could not help but remember his melodious laughter, enchanting words, attractive glances, and charming stride. They began to cry, and in that ecstasy, the eagerness to hear Krishna's message subdued their anger. Balaram was mystified by the contradictory currents of the gopis' love. No doubt he could recall Krishna's words, but how would he convey the love inherent in Krishna's message? How would he, a mere messenger, fully convey Krishna's unique mood to the gopis? It was a mood known only to Krishna and his beloveds. Balaram was the master of all power and the lord of all words, yet he did not feel up to this task. Despite the natural respect they had for Baladev, the gopis could not be satisfied hearing from him. They wanted Krishna, and if Krishna had a message for them, then he should come to them. They wanted to hear his message from his own lotus mouth. To save Balaram from an embarrassing predicament, Krishna would have to speak directly to the gopis and fulfill his own purpose. And so, unbeknown to the residents of Dwarka, Krishna once again returned to Vrindavan, this time in a very special way. He appeared in the pure transcendental mind of Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan, the one who forcibly draws Krishna, this time from Dwarka to Vraja and to the gopis. Within his opulent palace in Dwarka, Krishna reclined upon a couch in a melancholy mood. He thought, I wonder what my brother is doing now. Suddenly a moonlit kunja, the lapping Yamuna and the sorrowful cries of Chakravarkas displaced the ornate palace, the crashing sea waves and the crying Kurari birds of Dwarka. Krishna looked around. He had been transported to Vraja. There he was, before an assembly of gopis who were anxiously waiting to receive his message from Balaram. But Balarama would not speak. He was waiting for Krishna to speak. And how could Krishna refuse? Obliged by Balarama's desire and by the gopis' love, Krishna repeated his own nectarian message. He had appeared in Balaram's mind, and now he spoke through his brother's mouth. And as he spoke, he relished every detail of the gopis' response. Krishna was like a puppet being worked by the strings of love as he instructed the gopis in transcendental knowledge. He revealed his divine powers and, above all, put out the fire burning in the gopis' hearts. As Krishna spoke of his own divinity, the most confidential message of love permeated his every word, and that message was now being spoken directly to the gopis by Krishna himself. Incredulous, the gopis thought, we see Lord Balaram, but is this not Krishna speaking? The gopis tried blinking to clear their eyes, but who did they see standing before them? Benign smile, humorous glance and all, they saw none other than lightning complexion Balaram, dressed in blue silks and ornamented with diamonds. He looked like Balaram, but there was no mistaking his voice, his movements, and above all, his mood. They were uniquely Krishna's. It was extraordinary. The gopis had heard Krishna's conciliatory words, and they were deeply touched by his humility and by his love. But the incongruity between the person they saw speaking, Balaram, and the person they felt speaking, Krishna, perplexed them. To remove the gopis' doubts, Balaram revealed Sri Krishna in place of Balaram. For an instant, the Vraja Devis saw Shyama Sundara, resplendent in lightning-like silk, playing his bamboo flute. Krishna's enchanting smile and loving glance made the gopis forget their sorrow. Once again they felt as they had on that full moon night of Sarat, simply marvellous. Last page. But in a moment, Krishna disappeared, as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving only Balaram behind. Balaram, the supreme director, in a pastime of his own, had dramatically united the gopis with Krishna, and just as Balaram had summoned Krishna, he had now dismissed him. Again Krishna found himself lying upon a couch in Dwarka, his thoughts mingling with the sounds of crashing waves. Hari sat up and looked around. Was I dreaming? He thought. Did I go to Vraja to speak to my beloved? Who was there to answer his question? Krishna's heart raced. Only the gopis could have made him feel such ecstatic happiness. Surely his brother would know more, but he would have to wait for Balaram's return to find out. And Balaram would stay in Vraja for 2 months. He would continually give pleasure to the Vrajavasis by speaking Krishna's pastimes all day and by enjoying a festival of bliss with his own gopis at night. One night, when the Yamuna became indifferent to Balaram's order, he threatened to divide her into many small streams and began forcibly dragging her to him. In this way, he reveled in many wonderful pastimes. For Balaram and the Vrajavasis, the days and nights passed as if a single day. Balaram was charmed by the love of his kinsman, and they were charmed by his beauty, kindness, and strength. Vrindavan, which in Krishna's absence had become a wasteland, again flourished. Trees, creepers, and flowers blossomed. Birds sang happily, the rivers were full of sparkling waters, and the cows grazed in lush pastures. It was as if a downpour of nectar had flooded Vraja, immersing its inhabitants in bliss for the first time in a very long time. Just trying to find the point where it stops. It's just about, I think I'll just read to the last. Then one morning, Vrindavan awakened to find that the blissful dream was over. Balaram, who had arrived on a golden chariot, eager to give bliss to the Vrajavasis, had gone away. The Vrajavasis looked here and there, but Balaram was nowhere to be found. Dream or reality, the wonderful form of bliss, clad in blue garments with plough in hand, was gone. Again Vrindavan was devastated. The flowers wilted, the cows lowed in agony, the gopas' faces withered. Only the trees along the westbound road, the direction in which Balaram had departed, still blossomed. After all, they had been the last to see him.
Jai.
So now Shuranga Prabhu is going to read this amazing pastime of Balaram, the killing of Bedakasura.
In this way, Sri Krishna, along with his elder brother Balaram, passed the childhood age known as Kaumara and stepped into the age of Poganda from the 6th year up to the 10th. At that time, all the cowherd men conferred and agreed to give those boys who had passed their 5th year charge of the cows in pasturing ground. Given charge of the cows, Krishna and Balaram traversed Vrindavan, purifying the land with their lotus footprints. Accompanied by the cowherd boys and Balaram, Krishna brought forward the cows and played on his flute as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, which was full of flowers, vegetation and pasturing grass. The Vrindavan forest was as sanctified as the clear mind of a devotee and was full of bees, flowers and fruits. There were chirping birds and clear water lakes with waters that could relieve one of all fatigue. Sweet-smelling breezes blew always, refreshing the mind and body. Krishna, with his friends and Balaram, entered the forest and, seeing the favourable situation, desired to enjoy the atmosphere to the fullest extent. Krishna saw all the trees overloaded with fruits and fresh twigs, bending down to touch the ground, as if welcoming him by touching his lotus feet. He was very pleased by the behaviour of the trees, fruits and flowers, and he began to smile, realising their desires. Krishna then spoke to his elder brother Balaram as follows. My dear brother, you are superior to all of us, and your lotus feet are worshipped by the demigods. Just see how these trees, full with fruits and flowers, have bent down to worship your lotus feet. It appears that they are trying to get out of the darkness that has obliged them to accept the form of trees. Actually, the trees born in the land of Vrindavan are not ordinary living entities. Having held the impersonal point of view in their past lives, they have been put into this stationary condition of life, but now they have the opportunity of seeing you in Vrindavan, and they are praying for further advancement in spiritual life through your personal association. Generally, living entities in the mode of darkness obtain the bodies of trees. The impersonalist philosophers are in that darkness, but they eradicate it by taking full advantage of your presence. I think the drones that are buzzing all around you must have been your devotees in their past lives. They cannot leave your company because no one can be a better, more affectionate master than you. You are the supreme and original personality of Godhead, and the drones are just trying to spread your glories by chanting it every moment. I think some of them must be great sages, devotees of your lordship, and they are disguising themselves in the form of drones because they are unable to give up your company even for a moment. My dear brother, you are the supreme worshipable Godhead. Just see how the peacocks are dancing before you in great ecstasy. The deer, whose behaviour is just like that of the gopis, are welcoming you with the same affection, and the cuckoos, who are residing in this forest, are welcoming you with their joyful, sweet cries, because they consider that your appearance in their home is so auspicious. Even though they are trees and animals, these residents of Vrindavan are glorifying you. They are prepared to welcome you to the best of their ability, as is the practice of great souls in receiving another great soul at home. As for the land, it is so pious and fortunate because the footprints of your lotus feet are marking its body. It is quite natural for these Vrindavan inhabitants to thus receive a great personality like you. The herbs, creepers, and plants are also so fortunate to touch your lotus feet. And by your touching the twigs with your fingernails, these small plants are also made glorious. As for the hills and rivers, they too are now glorious because you are glancing at them. Above all, the damsels of Braj, the gopis, are the most glorious because you embrace them with your strong arms, being attracted by their beauty. In this way, Lord Krishna and Balaram began to enjoy the residents of Vrindavan to their full satisfaction, as they herded the calves and cows on the bank of the Yamuna. In some places, Krishna and Balaram were accompanied by their friends. The boys were singing, imitating and humming sounds of the drones, and accompanying Krishna and Balaram, who were garlanded with forest flowers. While walking, the boys sometimes imitated the quacking sound of the swans in the lakes, or when they saw the peacocks dancing, they imitated them before Krishna. Krishna also moved his neck, imitating the dancing and making his friends laugh. The cows taken care of by Krishna had different names, and Krishna would call them with love. After hearing Krishna calling, the cows would immediately respond by mooing, and the boys would enjoy this exchange to their heart's content. They would all imitate the sound vibrations made by the different kinds of birds, especially the chakoras, peacocks, cuckoos, and bharadwajas. Sometimes when they would see the weaker animals fleeing out of fear of the sounds of tigers and lions, the boys, along with Krishna and Balaram, would imitate the animals and run away with them. When they felt some fatigue, they would sit down, and Balaram would put his head on the lap of one of the boys just to take rest, and Krishna would immediately come and begin massaging the legs of Balaram. And sometimes Krishna would take a palm fan and fan the body of Balaram, causing a pleasing breeze to relieve him of his fatigue. Other boys would sometimes dance or sing while Balaram took rest, and sometimes they would wrestle amongst themselves or jump. When the boys were thus engaged, Krishna would immediately join them, and catching their hands, he would enjoy their company and laugh, and praise her activities. When Krishna would feel tired and fatigued, he would sometimes take shelter of the root of a big tree or the lap of a cowherd boy and lie down. When he would lie down with a boy or a root as his pillow, some of the boys would come and massage his legs, and some would fan his body with a fan made from leaves. Some of the more talented boys would sing in very sweet voices to please him. Thus, very soon his fatigue would go away. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose legs are tended by the Goddess of Fortune, shared himself with the cowherd boys as one of them, expanding his internal potency to appear exactly like a village boy. But despite his appearing just like a village boy, there were occasions when he proved himself to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes men pose themselves as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and cheat innocent people, but they can only cheat. They cannot exhibit the potency of God. While Krishna was thus engaged in his transcendental pastimes, exhibiting his internal potency in the company of the supermost fortunate cowherd boys, there occurred another chance for him to exhibit the superhuman powers of Godhead. His most intimate friends, Sridhar, Subal, and Stota Krishna, addressed Krishna and Balaram with great love and affection thus: "Dear Balaram, you are very powerful. Your arms are very strong. Dear Krishna, you are very expert in killing all kinds of disturbing demons. Will you kindly note that just near this place there is a big forest of the name Talavan. This forest is full of palm trees, and all the trees are filled with fruits. Some have fallen down, and some of them are very ripe, even in the trees. It is a very nice place, but because of a great demon, Denakasura, it is very difficult to go there. No one can reach the trees to collect the fruits. Dear Krishna and Balaram, this demon is present there in the form of an ass, and he is surrounded by similar demon friends who have assumed the same shape. All of them are very strong, so it is very difficult to approach this place. Dear brothers, you are the only persons who can kill such demons. Other than you, no one can go there for fear of being killed. Not even animals go there, and no birds are living there. They have all left. One can only appreciate the sweet aroma that is coming from that place. It appears that up until now, no one has tasted the sweet fruits there, either on the tree or on the ground. Dear Krishna, to tell you frankly, we are very attracted by this sweet aroma. Dear Balaram, if you like, let us all go there and enjoy these fruits. The aroma of the fruit is now spread everywhere. Don't you smell it from here?" When Balaram and Krishna were thus petitioned by their intimate friends, they were inclined to please them, and with smiling faces they proceeded toward the forest, surrounded by all their friends. Immediately upon entering the Talavan, Balaram began to yank the trees with his arms, exhibiting the strength of an elephant. Because of this jerking, all the ripe fruits fell on the ground. Upon hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the demon Denakasura, who is living there in the form of an ass, approached with great force, shaking the whole field so that all the trees moved as if there were an earthquake. The demon appeared before Balaram and kicked his chest with his hind legs. At first, Balaram did not say anything, but with great anger, the demon kicked him again, more vehemently. This time, Balaram immediately caught hold of the legs of the ass with one hand and, wheeling him around, threw him into the treetops. While he was being wheeled around by Balaram, the demon lost his life. Balaram threw the demon into the biggest palm tree about, and the demon's body was so heavy that the palm tree fell upon other trees and several fell down. It appeared as if a great hurricane was passing through the forest, and all the trees were falling down one after another. This exhibition of extraordinary strength is not astonishing, because Balaram is the personality of Godhead known as Ananta Shesh Naga, who is holding all the planets on the hoods of his millions of heads. He maintains the whole cosmic manifestation exactly as horizontal and vertical threads hold the weaving of a cloth. After the demon had been thrown into the trees, all the friends and associates of Denakasura immediately assembled and attacked Balaram and Krishna with great force. They were determined to retaliate and avenge the death of their friend, but Krishna and Balaram caught each of the asses by the hind legs and exactly in the same way wheeled them around. Thus they killed all of them and threw them into the palm trees. Because of the dead bodies of the asses, there was a panoramic scene. It appeared as if clouds of various colours were assembled in the trees. Hearing of this great incident, the demigods from the higher planets showered flowers on Krishna and Balaram and beat their drums and offered devotional prayers. A few days after the killing of Denakasura, people began to come into the Talavan forest to collect fruits, and animals began to return without fear to feed on the nice grasses growing there. Just by chanting or hearing these transcendental activities and pastimes of the brothers Krishna and Balaram, one can amass pious activities. When Krishna and Balaram entered the village of Vrindavan, along with their friends, they played their flutes and the boys praised their uncommon activities in the forest. Their faces were decorated with tilak and smeared with the dust raised by the cows, and Krishna's head was decorated with a peacock feather. Both he and Balaram played their flutes, and the young gopis were joyous to see Krishna returning home. All the gopis in Vrindavan remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking Krishna in the forest, or of him herding the cows in the pastures. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved, and they began to look at his face with the way drones hover over the honey of a lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing the flute, enjoyed the beautiful smiling faces of the gopis. Then Krishna and Balaram were immediately received by their affectionate mothers Yashoda and Rohini, who, according to the time's demands, began to fulfill the desires of their affectionate sons. Simultaneously, the mothers rendered service and bestowed benediction upon their transcendental sons. They took care of their children by bathing them and dressing them very nicely. Krishna was dressed in yellowish garments and Balaram was dressed in bluish garments, and they were given all sorts of ornaments and flower garlands. Being relieved of the fatigue of their day's work in the pasturing ground, they looked refreshed and very beautiful. They were given palatable dishes by their mothers, and they pleasantly ate everything. After eating, they were seated nicely on clean bedding, and the mothers began to sing various songs of their activities. As soon as they lay down on the bedding, they very quickly fell fast asleep. In this way, Krishna and Balaram used to enjoy Vrindavan life as cowherd boys. Sometimes Krishna used to go with his boyfriends and Balaram, and sometimes he used to go alone with his friends to the bank of the Yamuna and tend the cows. Gradually, the summer season arrived, and one day, while in the field, the boys and cows became very thirsty and began to drink the water of the Yamuna. The river, however, had been made poisonous by the venom of the great serpent known as Kaliya.
That's a story for another day. Shri Krishna Balarama ki jai. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about Krishna and Balaram. And Srila Prabhupada was mentioning there that just by hearing these pastimes, one can amass pious results of heaps of pious activities. So there's the purification of hearing these pastimes, and one increases one's good fortune by hearing these pastimes. So this is it. Prabhupada recommended that morning time we read philosophy such as Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the evening we read Leela such as Krishna book. So in this way, when you go to sleep, you can dream of Balaram. Krishna and Balaram come in your dreams, and you can be Krishna conscious even in your sleep. So we'd like to thank everyone for taking part in the program, attending the temple, those who are able to and those who are not. And as we mentioned earlier on, the temple will be open for visiting on this coming Sunday in a restricted manner. If you can contact online or on Facebook. And we will be celebrating the appearance of Lord Krishna, which will be Wednesday. So a week on Wednesday. We'll be having a programme from 6 p.m. till midnight. That will be an online programme, so please watch this space for more details on that. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Maya Prashanshi ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,